Yes, Madam Speaker, my colleagues, here we are passing our 12th budget extender. We only have 10 budget bills to pass, but this is our 12th extender. This ties last year's record of 12. Next week will be our 13th, and we'll break that record. This is the latest state budget since 2010. So we are actually looking to set a modern record for more budget dysfunction in New York State. A record for failure. Let that sink in for a minute. This is really a mess. Unfortunately, this is what one-party rule looks like when no one's willing to lead. And meanwhile, like we've talked about, there were reports this week that the language for some of the largest policy issues are still not nailed down yet. I'll remind you, every day this language remains open is another day for us to finally wrap up the budget and get to the end of session as well. That's going to be a challenge there. Some very important issues that are out there. I just want to stress it again. The EV school bus mandate, our conference has been talking about it. I know we have all been hearing about it from our constituents back at home, from our school districts back at home. The mother of all unfunded mandates, especially with the school budget vote coming up next week. The reports that there are going to be a delay to this is important. They need that levity and help. And I will say to you, it's still hard for me to understand why we were always asking, the way the law is, asking school districts to convert their entire school fleets before the state of New York does not have to convert their fleet. The state of New York has a full 5 years later to do their fleet. Oh, by the way, the state of New York has an out for feasibility, cost, reliability, whatever reason they want, but our school districts do not have that. But if we at least, I'd like to see it repealed and go back to the drawing board, but if we can't do that, let's at least pause that in this budget. We urge you to do that. We urge that to be included. I'm sure you're hearing from the same school districts in your school district just like we are. Also, I want to just reiterate that point, given that report that came out this week relative to our deteriorating roads and bridges, there is a demand and a need in our communities. Our communities right now with the delays are waiting for their aid numbers. That CHIPS money is critically important. And I will remind you, CHIPS doesn't just benefit upstate, it benefits the city, it benefits Long Island, it benefits everyone, and it's done in a fair way. With that deteriorating road and bridges, we need to have an increase in the CHIPS program. And I'm glad the chairman mentioned there's a possibility that can happen. I hopefully hear that. But with all this still outstanding, nothing finalized, we're close on a lot of issues, apparently. The governor has already went out there and declared victory on this budget. Declared victory on a budget that's not even written, on a budget this legislature has not even voted on yet, on a budget that the public has not seen. And as part of this so-called victory, we are now learning that the state is putting together another $4 billion bailout for New York City. Let's be clear what this means. New York City is going to get a bailout while the rest of the state is being left in the dark, still waiting on the state's support they need to plan their own budgets, our school districts, our local municipalities to plan their road projects, one thing after another. And my colleagues, this is exactly why you don't take a victory lap before the race is finished. And you certainly don't take one while the rest of us are in here passing budget extenders to keep the lights on. Of course, myself and others are going to vote for this extender because it's important that government keeps open. It's important that we're paying our dedicated employees who are doing such a great job to protect us, to keep us safe, to make sure our roads are safe, all the services they provide across the board. That's important. We need to keep government open. But let's be honest about what we're really doing here. We're not governing. We're failing the people who sent us here. And on Monday, if nothing changes, we won't just be failing them. We will be making history, but for all the wrong reasons. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I vote in the affirmative.
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have an exciting Friday show in store for you because it's Fridays with Phil. Phil Palmisano will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And a matter of fact, before that, we'll be playing a clip while he was in Albany and discussing the 12th budget extender. Yes, the 12th budget extender. Here it is, May the 15th. The budget due April the 1st. We're going to also be talking as much as we possibly can with the time that we have. Some international issues as President Trump just left China. We'll tell you what he had to say. We'll also be talking about some New York State issues, a lot with Phil, of course, but some others worth mentioning that to kick off the program. Also, what else? Well, we got a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. We'll start with viewer comments. Mark writes in this morning and says, good morning, and we say good morning, Mark. Well, they're after Kash Patel again, this time for snorkeling in Pearl Harbor. Yes, I saw that article this morning. There's a VIP snorkeling package that apparently he was a part of. I guess to Democrats, you're not supposed to have fun, says Mark. And according to Trump, China has agreed to not sell arms to Iran and pledged to buy soybeans and beef again from the U.S. And I understand there was some big dealings with some of the execs that President Trump brought along on the trip. We're going to talk as much about that as possible. First, I want to give you an update. We had good news earlier this week where gubernatorial candidate, friend of Frankly Speaking, Bruce Blakeman, he won his court case where he was to receive matching funds. It was such a partisan mess. What had happened, and I'll just give you the quick synopsis. He filed the paperwork to get matching funds. Put aside what you think of matching funds. It's the rules of the game. So in this scenario, it would help his campaign. So he files it. The partisan board, Democrats outweighing the Republicans on the board, decided he does not get the matching funds because he did not fill out a piece of paperwork that had his lieutenant governor on it. That piece of paperwork did not and does not exist. So needless to say, the judge said this is foolish. I'm not in those words, but said this is partisan, essentially. Of course, Blakeman gets the matching funds. Well, in a fit of pettiness, and because clearly, I think the only thing you can read from this is Democrats and Governor Hochul are scared of Bruce Blakeman, the New York Public Campaign Finance Board is now challenging the court ruling on matching funds. The New York State Public Campaign Finance Board has appealed a court order that allowed Republican candidate for governor Bruce Blakeman to submit missing forms and qualify for the matching funds program. The board argued that the court's decision creates too much uncertainty around the campaign finance program and that allowing late fixes would make the entire process unclear and vague. Number one, it's been unclear and vague when you don't even have the form he's supposed to fill out. And remember, in the past, you could run for governor as Republican, and your Republican lieutenant governor candidate could lose. So you could win as a Republican and have a Democrat lieutenant governor. Well, this is the year, I'm not sure when it started, but this is the year, at least with the matching funds, because it's the first time at a statewide level in this case. So he, in theory, had to put them both on, but he had filed before he had picked his lieutenant governor. Anyway, if you want to talk about vague and unclear, talk about the pot calling the kennel black, because the campaign finance board clearly is vague and unclear. I think the easiest way to settle this all after this race is over, let's just get rid of matching funds. Let's not have taxpayers spend their hard-earned money on candidates they could be vehemently opposed to. Let's not give politicians $6 to every $1 they raise. Maybe we can just clear up this whole mess right now. Blakeman responded to this appeal by blaming Governor Hochul, accusing her of raising taxes and using that money to pay lawyers to defend her failed attempt to cheat his campaign. Good for him. I don't need to go through all the decision here. But attorneys for the board and two of its commissioners, Henry Berger and Esma Bagnola, officially filed the notice of appeal on Wednesday. According to that filing, the court should throw out 1 week extension and uphold the original rejection. They argued that it's been over 2 months since that deadline and that allowing a fix would be a mistake. Again, They did not have the form. It was not brought to his knowledge. This should be done in good faith and not a gotcha move. Because remember, the matching funds plan, the whole idea of what they told you, the taxpayer, was that it was supposed to help the little guy beat the incumbent. What do we got here? The little guy trying to beat the incumbent, and the incumbent said, nope, no more matching funds. The New York State Board of Elections contends that the judge's decision creates too much uncertainty around the campaign finance program. There is already uncertainty. Let's scrap it. Indeed, the judge ruled that Blakeman didn't follow the rules and the missing paperwork was important and didn't identify any specific targeted political coordination from the board. Now, again, it was completely partisan vote. Blakeman responded saying Kathy Hochul's hacks got caught trying to rig the system. Now they're picking your pockets to pay for the appeal. He also accused the governor of raising taxes and using that money to pay lawyers to defend her failed attempt to cheat the campaign. So there you go. There's an update from earlier in the week. Speaking of, well, this isn't really an update. I would just love to hear your opinion on it. And thank you for all the waves coming in already this morning. U.S. senators agreed yesterday unanimously to suspend their own pay during government shutdowns. Seems like a no-brainer. In an effort to force Congress to share the financial pain after a series of funding standoffs that upended the federal government. The measure reflects growing political sensitivity around shutdowns after federal agencies were at least partially shuttered for much of the past 8 months, disrupting services, delaying benefits, and intensifying frustrations with Washington dysfunction. Sponsored by John Kennedy, the Republican from Louisiana, very colorful character, has some great sayings. It directs the upper chamber to withhold senators' salaries whenever funding lapses for at least one federal agency or department. Lawmakers would receive the withheld pay only after the shutdown ends, much like the essential employees when there's a government shutdown. Yeah, or non-essential employees, all of them. When they are going to work, or whether they're not going to work, they're not getting paid during the shutdown. But at the end of that shutdown, they get all their back pay. So it's similar to what like the TSA had to deal with. The resolution applies only to senators and does not require approval from the House of Representatives or President Trump. Because of constitutional restrictions on changing congressional pay, it will not take effect until after the November midterm elections. I think it's a great idea. So good for John Kennedy for putting that forth. And you got to say good for it being a unanimous vote. Been a while since we saw one of those. Okay, that was a couple of quick things. Before we talk about China, the U.S. is now moving to indict, remember this name, former Cuban leader Raul Castro, the brother of Fidel. The potential charges against Castro, who is 94, come after CIA Director John Ratcliffe met Thursday with counterparts from Cuba's Ministry of the Interior during a high-level visit to the island nation. Yes, that's a huge move. Again, that should be noted. John Ratcliffe met with Cuban officials in Havana yesterday, kind of overlooked because of the China trip. John Ratcliffe said, following the request submitted by the U.S. government that a delegation presided over by the CIA Director John Ratcliffe be received in Havana, the Revolutionary Directorate approved the realization of this visit and the meeting with its counterparts in the Ministry of the Interior. The meeting with the head of the CIA, the same agency Cuba has long accused of sabotaging its revolution, comes as tensions between the Cold War-era foes have risen to the highest point in decades. Havana said its officials stressed in the meeting that Cuba does not constitute a threat to the national security of the U.S. and that there are no legitimate reasons to include it on the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism. They also insisted the country does not harbor, support, or fund terrorists, something the U.S. has long accused it of doing, and denied hosting foreign military or intelligence bases. Two sources familiar with the meeting confirmed to CNN and the CIA director made the trip. The CIA later posted photos of Ratcliffe meeting with Cuban officials. Trump said, Cuba is asking for help and we are going to talk. In the meantime, I'm off to China. You may recall I had quoted him yesterday as saying that. I think I'm missing a wave there. The United States, so going back to this, looking to indict Raul Castro. CBS was the first to respond or report to this potential charge. Raul Castro is the younger brother of Fidel Castro, who died back in 2016. Wow, it's been that long. That's amazing. Castro was reportedly being indicted in connection with the downing of planes 30 years ago. The indictment, which would require approval from a grand jury, would center on Cuba's deadly 1996 shoot-down of planes operated by the humanitarian group Brothers to the Rescue. During the meeting, Ratcliffe met with Cuban officials, including, I'm not going to go through the names, excuse me, in Havana to personally deliver President Trump's message that the United States is prepared to seriously engage on economic and security issues, but only if Cuba makes fundamental changes. A CIA official told Fox News that Ratcliffe and Cuban officials discussed intelligence cooperation, economic stability, and security issues, all against the backdrop that Cuba can no longer be a safe haven for adversaries in the Western Hemisphere. Now, Cuba says it has run completely out of fuel, blaming, I don't think that's a problem, U.S. embargo. We have absolutely no diesel. Cuban Energy Minister, oh, how'd you like that job, huh? Cuban Energy Minister Vicente de la Oleve said in an interview, we have absolutely no diesel. This was on a state-run national television. And he repeatedly stated that oil stocks to generate power for the electric grid were pretty much exhausted too. He said a lone delivery of 730,000 barrels of oil gifted by Russia in March had run out, and the national grid was now completely dependent on Cuba's home-produced crude oil, natural gas, and renewable energy. Quote, in Havana, the blackouts now exceed 20 to 22 hours per day. The situation is very tense. It's becoming hotter. On Wednesday evening on X, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel blamed a 2,000 megawatt electricity shortfall overnight and 1,100 megawatts that could have been produced during the day had the fuel to generate it been available to power stations on a criminal siege. This dramatic worsening has a single cause, the genocidal energy blockade to which the United States subjects our country, threatening international tariffs against any nation that supplies us with fuel. Now, protests are breaking out. We mentioned it yesterday on the program. It's been the worst blackouts in decades. As I said, the minister saying we have no fuel. Overnight, hundreds took to the streets of the capital, blocking roads with burning piles of rubbish, banging pots, and shouting, "Turn on the lights." According to Reuters, multiple groups of peaceful protesters were seen across the capital, making Wednesday night, this was Wednesday night, the biggest single night of demonstrations since the country's energy crisis began. So there you are, your update on Cuba. When we return, we're going to talk China. We have a couple things here about Iran. I see a lot of messages coming in. Keep those messages and waves coming in. We're already at 13, and we've got an exciting show in store for you. As I said, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in the next hour. Don't forget next week. Next week, not only do you have to vote in the school budget vote and the school board, that's on the 19th on Tuesday. But during the week, we're going to interview and find out more from Tony Pucci about his new book, Whoppers and Other Lies. If you have not, Tony is a local author, and these mystery books, the Michael Bishop mysteries, are just such a fun read. And I'm not just saying that because Tony and I are friends. I started reading the books before I really even knew them. Highly recommend it. I would say start from the beginning, but you could probably start with this new one. But it's a wild ride. I really do enjoy them, and I'm glad that he can be on the program next week. We're also going to hear about the upcoming Miss Colonial Days pageant. It's not too late to register your child or your grandchild, or maybe you're of the age and your parents have you watch this for a little education before you go to school. It's not too late to register. We're going to find out all about that later in the week. Also, Heritage of America Band playing at the Clements Center on May 24th. We're going to have an interview with some members of the band. I think it's next week. We're going to hear about the Chemung Fair. We're going to hear about Hornby pretty soon and their upcoming celebration. Yes, we're busy. We love every second of it. That's why you never want to miss an episode of Frankly Speaking. Enough housekeeping. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Get ready Glass Fest, May 22nd through 24th. Brought to you by Chemung Canal Trust. Experience the magic of live glass blowing. From hands-on fun to incredible sights, there's something for everyone. Explore creations from local artisans. 3 days, one incredible celebration. Brought to you by Corning's Gaffer District. On Friday night, it's Drake White with John King opening. On Saturday, Tracy's A Taylor Experience. Join us for Glass Fest, brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise a relative.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark writes in, how about this? Make Governor Hochul pay us back the money she collected from us to rerun for governor. Good point. I think we just get rid of the matching funds. I mean, I've been opposed to it from the beginning. It's just ripe for waste, fraud, and corruption. It's also just at the base level. Should you be okay? Now, Governor Hochul this time did not take matching funds. She has a $20 million war chest. She doesn't need it, and she wanted to play this game where I'm not taking it so she can look innocent when they challenge Blakeman and try to take his matching funds away from him. But let's say in the hypothetical she did take the matching funds, you would be helping to support, Governor Hochul's campaign. So you can translate to other candidates and see how maybe there's a better use of taxpayer dollars, such as, government-run grocery stores, about as both as corrupt. Okay, the big news coming out of China, the one that you've all been asking for. What was the menu at the dinner with Trump and Xi? After their historic summit ended, they had a pretty fancy meal. The bilateral tea and lunch that President Xi served, I don't know how you pronounce this, but I guess it's very historic. I think there's only been 4 presidents that visited the Zhangnahe compound in Beijing. It was a nod, the menu, to Chinese culture with kung pao chicken and scallops, braised greens, desserts. Well, let's go through the whole menu. Minced codfish and seafood soup, crispy and stir-fried lobster balls, pan-seared beef fillet stuffed with morel mushrooms, kung pao chicken and scallops, braised seasonal greens, bamboo shoots, mushrooms and beans, stewed beef in a bun, steamed pork and shrimp dumplings, chocolate brownies, fruits, ice cream, coffee, and tea. Outside the fancy luncheon, though, is where the real action took place. Bags of McDonald's were served up to the United States and Chinese staffers and press in a nod to President Trump's actual favorite meal. Offerings included Big Macs and chicken sandwiches, but I don't know if this is a punishment for the way the both staffs acted, because I guess there's a little bit behind the scenes action. Not the iconic chain's French fries. There you go. I know this is what you really wanted to hear. The dinner later on featured crispy beef ribs, roast duck, lobster and tomato soup, salmon and mustard sauce, and pan-fried pork bun. For dessert, there was tiramisu, fruits, and ice cream, another favorite of the commander-in-chief. Anyway, I know. Okay. Do you think the president was hoping that one of the people would bring in one of the Big Macs? Could be. Now, I guess this is going to be a controversy. President Trump can't use his beloved cell phone while in China. One of the many logistical challenges that he and the White House staff faced on the ground in Beijing. The president, like all travelers to China, was told not to use personal devices in order to protect his data from hackers. It makes for a tough few days for Trump, who loves his phone, dialing friends, taking calls from reporters, and posting memes. A White House official confirmed the president wouldn't be using his personal phone, so he bare-knuckled his way through China without his trusty phone. I'm sure, I guess I don't know why it'd be a huge story, but 4 or 5 pager here. Now, for White House staff, personal devices were stored on Air Force One and Faraday bags, which block all signals, including GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and RFID. The bags can protect sensitive data from being hacked remotely. It must be kind of, to be honest, it must be kind of nice to not have the phone. I don't know how President Trump feels about it, but to have that responsibility taken away from you because it was necessary might be kind of nice. Just take it all in. Enjoy the trip. Trump said yesterday that the U.S.-China relationship was very strong. This has been an incredible visit. I think a lot of good has come of it. He's a man I respect greatly, meaning Xi Jinping, become really a friend. We've known each other now 11 years, almost 12. That's a long time, and we've settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to settle. And the relationship is very strong. We really have done some wonderful things. Now, Xi Jinping, I guess it says here that, I'm sorry, I skipped. Trump made his remarks ahead of the tea and working lunch. He said, I've chosen this place especially to reciprocate the hospitality extended to me in 2017 at Mar-a-Lago. In another gesture of goodwill, Xi promised to send Trump Chinese rose seeds as a gift. Trump said, I love that. That's great. Before talking up some fantastic trade deals that have been struck, we discussed a lot of things also, and I think we're very much in agreement. Trump said that China will invest hundreds of billions in U.S. tech companies whose CEOs met with Xi Jinping. Those business people are here to make deals and to bring back jobs. China is going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars with those people that were in that room today, he told Sean Hannity. That's why they came. I suggested that before we start the meeting, I'd like to introduce them to you, and they were surprised because it wasn't scheduled. Trump said the Chinese leadership really had a good time once they got used to the fact that we're a little bit off schedule here. They did fantastically well. It was really good. Xi actually said that was very good. That was a good idea, but it's very different from what the schedule had. Yeah, I guess there was some issues with timing. I guess there was some issues with a Secret Service member not allowed into a certain room because he had a weapon, which is weird because another Secret Service helped it. I don't know. There was some confrontation where they weren't going to let press on into the press pool. So there was some behind-the-scenes problems. Now, New York Times, of course, because just like we heard yesterday, and we talked about it numerous times, just like we see those in the media, and people, sadly in Washington, that want to see the United States lose in Iran, they wanted to see these conversations with China be a disaster, see them be a failure for Trump, because it's not ultimately about what's good for the country. It's about what gets Trump, right? So the New York Times reports China increasingly views Trump's America as an empire in decline. For decades, many Chinese viewed the United States with a mix of admiration, envy, and resentment. President Trump's volatile second term shattered that image. An appropriate piece from the New York Times, who is being sued by Israel. We have not talked about that program or that news story on this program because it's so graphic what was reported by this person in the New York Times about Israel and what they were doing to the Palestinians. It has been denied by just about everybody. It was a complete hit piece, an anti-Semitic hit piece. So that goes to show you a little bit what the New York Times is dealing with. But Trump said yesterday on Truth Social, when President Xi very elegantly referred to the United States as perhaps being a declining nation, he was referring to the tremendous damage we suffered during the 4 years of sleepy Joe Biden and the Biden administration. And on that score, he was 100% correct. President Xi was not referring to the incredible rise that the United States has displayed to the world during the 16 spectacular months of the Trump administration, which includes all-time high stock markets and 401ks, military victory, and thriving relationships with Venezuela, the military decimation of Iran, to be continued. The United States is the hottest nation anywhere in the world, and hopefully our relationship with China will be stronger and better than ever before. He went on to say that the United States suffered immeasurably under Biden-era policies like open borders, increased taxes, DEI, transgender for everybody, and sanctuary city ordinances. He agreed that 2 years ago the nation was in decline. So there you are. Now, what had been said or what had been reported was on welcoming banquet for President Trump, President Xi pointed out that this year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan for economic and social development. The over 1.4 billion people of China, drawing on the rich heritage of our over 5,000-year civilization, are advancing Chinese modernization on all fronts through high-quality development. This year is also the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence. The over 300 million American people are reinvigorating the spirit of patriotism, innovation, and enterprise, and ushering in a new journey for the development of the United States. The people of China and the United States are both great people. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can go hand in hand. We can help each other succeed and advance the well-being of the whole world. President Xi and President Trump also agreed to build a constructive China-U.S. relationship of strategic stability to promote the steady, sound, and sustainable development of China-U.S. relations and bringing more peace, prosperity, and progress to the world. All right, we got to take another short break because I'm running late. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We're not going to talk all about China. A lot of it's going to be New York State issues, obviously, this morning, as we were talking with Phil Palmisano. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lee Com Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
They say when you love doing something, it stops being a chore. Ferris mowers with patented front and rear suspension are designed to turn hard work into an easy ride, no matter how rough the terrain. Quality cut, less fatigue, more control. Feels like the grass can't grow fast enough. Feels like a Ferris. Digio is the fastest growing form of advertising today. And with hyper-targeting, your marketing dollars can be more efficient than ever. Join WYDC and New Logic Marketing for a digital video strategy seminar, May 19th and 20th, with sessions from 8 to 9 a.m. and 12 to 1 p.m. at the Radisson in Corning. You'll learn what drives results and how to make video a powerful part of your overall marketing strategy. Join us May 19th for an expert look at digital video and learn what works from experts.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. Trump revealed how President Xi, his stance on arming Iran. Xi said he's not going to give military equipment. That's a big statement. He said that today. That's a big statement. He said that strongly. He said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help when in reference to the Iran conflict. But at the same time, he said, they buy a lot of oil, of their oil there, and they'd like to keep doing that. He'd like to see Hormuz Strait open. I said, well, we didn't stop it. They did. Now, according to the New York Post, before we move along from this and talk about Iran, because we have a lot to get to before Phil stops in, it looks like President Donald Trump's visit will wind up as positively as anyone could reasonably hope. His host, Xi Jinping, offered at least lip service support for Washington's central goals in Iran, permanent free passage of the Strait of Hormuz, and a never-nuclear Islamic Republic. As important, Beijing gave the president a warm welcome, delivering all due honors to Trump. Oh, excellent food, and even, I forgot to mention this morning, a serenade of the YMCA. Yes, they had some musicians from China perform the YMCA, one of Trump's favorites. Notably, President Xi's talk of the, I don't know how to say it, but you probably do by now, Thucydides trap, could signal a sincere desire to avoid serious issues in the future. The trap refers to the 14th century BC Greece, when conflict between dominant power Sparta and rising power Athens led to decades of warring that left both powers reduced. A U.S.-China war now, of course, risks world annihilation. Another good sign, Xi accepted Trump's invitation for a return visit to Washington, likely in September. Having the two world leaders meet and break bread together is surely cause for hope that they can control their rivalry. That said, it won't be easy. For starters, everyone in the U.S. delegation, from President Trump down to the lowliest reporter, got told to use burner phones and email addresses for the whole trip because the Chinese would try to hack them nonstop. Add to that a lot of bullying below the top level. As the New York Post reported, journalists kept from the action and denied water in the heat. A White House staffer trampled by Chinese media, themselves just a government tool. A Secret Service agent kept out of official events. The U.S. press corps literally had to make a break for it to stay with the president's motorcade at one point. And of course, President Xi's public support for opening the Strait of Hormuz and ensuring Iran never goes nuclear amounts to words, not actions. Meanwhile, U.S. officials are telling the press that Beijing has still been plotting to send arms to Tehran. Time will tell if that changes. Then, of course, there's Taiwan. The Chinese again politely pushed their guests to soften U.S. support for the island democracy, which the Americans politely ignored. As Secretary of State Marco Rubio explained, U.S. policy on the issue of Taiwan is unchanged. They always raise it on their side. We always make clear our position, and we move on to the other topics. Both sides know AI is central to the future, and that Taiwan will be the center to building AI chips for at least another decade. No way will the American president let China take over the island democracy, especially not after how it treated Hong Kong. U.S.-China relations will inevitably be strained for the foreseeable future. If this summit can keep tensions low despite the host's provocations, it will be a triumph for Trump, and when he gets home, he can start planning a warm September reception for Xi in D.C. All right, in Iran, the FBI is offering a $200,000 reward for an ex-Air Force intelligence agent that is accused of spying for Iran. Monica Witt, a former U.S. service member and a counterintelligence agent who was indicted by a federal grand jury back in February of 2019 on charges of espionage, including transmitting national defense information to the Iranian government. Witt, a former active duty U.S. Air Force intelligence specialist and special agent for the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, served in the military from 1997 to 2008 before working as a U.S. government contractor until 2010. The 47-year-old's military service and contracting employment provided her access to secrets and top-secret information relating to foreign intelligence. Officials allege that in 2013, Witt defected to Iran and provided information to the country's government, placing sensitive and classified U.S. national defense information and programs at risk. Wow. Okay. Now, Iran, and this is so sick, gives you another example of what the people in Iran, again, why it's so sad and pathetic that these protesters in the streets hurl these anti-Semitic slurs and these signs. I mean, for instance, you probably saw the news by now that was it NYU? I got to be right about this. The NYPD is investigating after someone raised a swastika flag on the campus of New York University. The flag appeared to resemble a purple version of the Israeli flag with stripes and a Star of David in the center. However, inside the star was the NYU torch emblem, and on the other side, a large swastikas. The flag was quickly taken down, but the damage was done. NYU said in a statement it was working with the police to identify the person responsible. That's disturbing. It's disgusting, but I mentioned that. These same people that hate Israel and say that they're falsely involved in some kind of genocide. Where is their voice, their platform, all the cliche words that they use in support of the Iranian people fighting against the regime that is brutally murdering them, such as in this instance? An Iranian father who protested the regime was executed after the state canceled his final visit with his family, only to tell them over the phone afterwards that they had already killed him, according to his grieving relatives. Mohammed Abazi, 55 years old, was executed Wednesday inside prison as his family was ordered to come see him one last time. But when the family got there to say their goodbyes, prison officials rejected their plea to see him, sending them home and calling them later to inform them that his execution had been carried out. Just psychological torture. The prevention of a final visit is not only psychological torture of the family, but also an explicit violation of the executive regulations of the prison organization and international standards for prisoners' rights, which emphasize the right to a farewell before the execution of a death sentence. The objective of these legal violations goes beyond punishing an individual. It aims to psychologically paralyze society and create a paralyzing shock among protesters to suppress the public's will for seeking justice. Abbasi was sentenced to death over his participation in the January protests that saw thousands rise up against the Islamic regime over its totalitarian rule and failure to fix the nation's economic crisis. So again, where are the protesters in our streets with ribbons in memory of Abbasi, or ribbons in general of the thousands that were killed, the 1,000 Iranian people that were killed by their regime? Again, showing the hypocrisy, and really it's just, in my mind, the protests are just about pushing an anti-Semitic message. Now, according to my clock, I got to go here. Quickly, don't forget, today is the Steuben County 11th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial at the Sheriff's Office. It is today at 6 p.m. at 7007 Rumsey Street Extension. That's the Sheriff's Office, and it'll be held at the Steuben County Sheriff's Memorial Park. It's right there next to the building. It's an amazing experience. The service includes remarks from regional representatives, taps, and a 21-gun salute by the Corning American Legion ritual team, Amazing Grace by the Crystal City Pipes and Drums, and the presentation of the colors by the Steuben County Sheriff's Honor Guard. Please attend if you are able. You will not be disappointed. All right, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
It started with a cake of Irish soap. The teacher said, well, each one of you has a cake of Irish soap. See what you can make. And I did a bird. I'm like a farmer that plants the cornfield and can't wait to see the sprouts and the corn come up and then harvest it. I'm sort of like that.
When it's a home improvement, Horseheads Do-It Center has you covered. Family-owned, locally trusted, and packed with everything you need for any project. From top-quality tools to kitchen and bath essentials, we make it easy. Competitive prices, expert advice, friendly service. Visit us at 124 North Main Street or online at doitbest.com/horseheads today.
Get ready for GlassFest, May 22nd through 24th. Brought to you by Shimon Canal Trust. Experience the magic of live glass blowing. From hands-on fun to incredible sights, there's something for everyone. Explore creations from local artisans. 3 days, one incredible celebration. Brought to you by Corning's Gaffer District. On Friday night, it's Drake White with John King opening. On Saturday, Tracy's A Taylor Experience. Join us for GlassFest. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise a relative.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Quick update for our friends in Hornell. If you're around this weekend, Saturday at 1, Sunday at 1, I'm going to be filling in for Mayor John Buckley on The Pulse on WLEA. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but I hope that you can be a part of it and join us. We'll have a lot of fun. All right. Comment from a viewer. Blakeman needs to talk to Spencer Pratt's team. His commercials are the best. I've got to agree. So I've watched this on the peripheral, haven't really paid much attention to it until recently. Talk about a master of social media. I mean, you're almost forced to see his ads Very impressed with his performance in the debate. Very impressed with his, again, use of social media, but also his political ads. That is going to be a really interesting race. He's making some leeway, and just by, it's not some radical thing that he's doing it to show the people of LA, listen, look, here's a video. Look at all the homeless as you walk your street, the human, or walk on the street, the human waste on the street. And it has been really interesting to watch, and you can tell they're scared because they're bringing the long knives out against him. TMZ said he doesn't really live in an Airstream trailer, and he said, I don't live anywhere. They let my house burn down. Yeah, I agree with you. Blakeman does need to talk to him. Spencer Pratt. Now, I know I don't watch reality shows. I know he was a reality show, quote-unquote, star. I'm not really overly familiar with that part of his life, but just impressed with how he's running his campaign. So the U.S. decimated Iran's Navy for a full generation while retaining all the munitions necessary to restart the war, according to Admiral Brad Cooper from CENTCOM. Cooper claimed that in the 30 months preceding Operation Epic Fury, Iranian-backed forces fired off some 350 attacks against U.S. personnel. But now that 90% of its defense industrial capacity has been destroyed, the regime's ability to project power has diminished dramatically. I would assess that the drone and missile forces will take years to reconstitute. Iran's Navy likely will not get back to its previous size for a full generation. When asked about Iran's ability to project power, Cooper said they certainly cannot do it at the level of mass that we all saw, with hundreds of missiles and drones raining across the Middle East. That doesn't mean they don't have any capability, but that broad power projection capability no longer exists. So just an update on Iran. It's been a little mysterious, not quiet. It's everything's been about the China trip. But Israel's preparing for renewed Iran fighting, builds target bank with U.S., possible Lebanon fallout. That's the headline. U.S. President Trump is to hold a series of Iran discussions after returning to Washington with renewed negotiations, pressure in the Strait of Hormuz, or fresh military action on the table. Israel updates target attacks. I keep reading it strange. I apologize. But it looks as if Israel's preparing for perhaps another attack in that President Trump, if you believe YNAP Global, but they are prepared for kind of how do I want to word it? Getting back to the fighting game, essentially. Okay, we have some New York State issues, but I thought I had something on Pratt because you piqued my interest when you said that, but I guess I don't. I did see, and this is really interesting. Well, where should we go from here? I caught myself off guard. Oh, David Marcus has a really good piece, and we just don't have a lot of time this morning. That's why I'm breezing through, because we're going to have Phil Palmisano in the next hour. David Marcus said Democrats love whistleblowers, right? We hear look at all these whistleblowers that historically they just praise. They love whistleblowers unless they attack St. Fauci. It was an amazing sight in the Senate as the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, led by its chairman, Rand Paul, held an explosive hearing featuring a CIA whistleblower testifying on COVID origins, and not a single Democrat bothered to even show up. Every chair on the left of the dais sat empty at the high-ranking CIA official James Erdman outlined the duplicity and lies, not just of the government during COVID, but especially of disgraced former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Director Dr. Anthony Fauci, which is precisely why the cowardly Democrats took the morning off. You can read the whole piece for yourself. We don't have time for it all. But so long as Democrats remain deaf, dumb, and blind as to the ever-growing allegations and evidence of Fauci's malfeasance, the American people will never get the full story. But that doesn't mean Republicans can't keep discovering pieces of it. According to Holly, there are already enough pieces for an indictment of Fauci, and who knows what remains to be discovered. All right, we have to take another short break, but before that, a quick announcement. Care First New York will be hosting their Brunch in Bloom, Sip, Savor, and Support, presented by the Dunn Group from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. this Sunday at the Pines in Corning. This sold out spring. Oh, it's sold out. So anyway, if you happen to go, send some pictures. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing event this Sunday at the Pines. All right, we have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News. Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We do have quite a few New York updates. Oh, I know people have been talking about the school budget. Remember, the school budget is May 19th. According to Spectrum, New York school districts are facing an uphill battle getting their budgets approved this year. Every spring, of course, last year here in Corning, it got turned down originally and then passed a second time. And as I've said before, just at face value, I always find it interesting that people are so quick to vote yes, because so many people complain about taxes in New York State and how it's driving them out. So the one that they have the most direct say over, it just surprised me that that's the one that they're so supportive of. I'm not against helping the kids. In this scenario, though, when you see the exorbitant costs and where that money is going to, just makes it a little difficult to support, right? But they said that this year it could be an uphill battle across the state. It was an uphill battle last year as well. As I said, New York or Corning failed the first time. I want to say Horseheads did too. Was that right? But there's a few throughout the area that failed. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. And again, the vote is May 19th from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Okay, I wanted to mention... Man, so many things here. Where do I go from this? Just quickly about that story from the New York Times. I don't want to get into the disgusting nature of it, but Israel is going to sue the New York Times over a recent hideous and distorted article that accused Israeli soldiers and their dogs of raping Palestinian prisoners. Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday, they defamed the soldiers of Israel and perpetrated a blood libel about rape, trying to create a false symmetry between the genocidal terrorists of Hamas and Israel's valiant soldiers. Yeah, and think of how it's sick. When you read the details of what happened on October 7th and what Hamas did to their prisoners, it's disgusting. And so I guess this was columnist Nicholas Kristof trying to, I don't know, trying to push this lie and this narrative to again attack Israel. Netanyahu said, under my leadership, Israel will not be silent. We'll fight these lies in the court of public opinion and in the court of law. Truth will prevail. Douglas Murray says he accuses Nicholas Kristof of doing the same thing that Kristof accused Israel of doing. We'll put it that way. At least that is what I've heard from an anonymous source. A source who was intensely hostile to the New York Times columnist, and that's good enough for me. Now, I come to think of it, my pet pug does have a strange look on his face lately, As it happens, the rumor that I have just attempted to spread is far less lurid and fanciful than the one that the New York Times chose to spread around the world this week and push this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hate. In a piece which has already been widely debunked, Christoph claimed that Israeli prison guards routinely use rape as a method of torture on Palestinian prisoners. The piece portrayed Israel prison guards and soldiers as rapists, sadists, and akin to Nazi prison camp guards, perhaps even worse. Christoph's most grotesque claim, as I mentioned, is based on an anonymous source who's described as a, quote, journalist from Gaza. According to this source, while being held in Israeli prison, the Gazan man was stripped naked. I don't want to tell you, the lurid details. You can find it for yourself at the New York Post. Like a number of other journalists, I've spent far too much time this week reading up on the relevant literature about this claim. My computer search engine history is probably now as suspect as Christoph's. Normal people would note that the story does not pass the most basic smell test. It is the sort of claim that someone would only make if they wanted to portray their enemies as absolute monsters, enemies of humanity. As it happens, if you scan the relevant literature, you will find there's absolutely no evidence that this can be done training the dogs in this way. So here we get to the true question. Why would anyone make such a claim, and why would a supposed serious newspaper publish it? The reasons are severalfold. The first is that the New York Times story landed just a day before an anticipated report into Hamas's use of sexual violence on October 7, 2023. So they were trying to beat them, if you will. Many of us did not need further evidence of the crimes of that day, but the release of the Commission of Inquiry sets out its remorseless detailing of the systemic, widespread use of rape by Hamas on that day and the way in which sexual violence was integral to their attack. It lays out the calculated way in which Hamas terrorists carried out these acts. There's footage. Again, if you saw it, it's something that you can't unsee. It is impossible to think of crimes worse than those which Hamas committed on that day on October 7th, unless you are Nicholas Kristof. Because if you know that a report is coming out into Hamas's use of sexual violence, then it's clearly very important to invent a claim even more appalling than the real-life crimes of Hamas. For the New York Times, it seems to have been crucial to throw a lie into the system in order to overwhelm or block any sympathy or understanding that might go in the direction of the Israelis. The New York Times has leveled claims of anti-Semitism against a number of people in the past year, sometimes accurately, sometimes not. But none of the worst things that Tucker Carlson and Rick Fuentes have ever said even comes close to the lie that the New York Times has printed in its own pages. A paper that claims to be opposed to conspiracy theories has just mainstreamed the most disgusting conspiracy theory imaginable. And just consider the effects of this. The effect is to portray the soldiers and prison guards of the Jewish state as uniquely evil, uniquely disgusting, and uniquely inhuman. What wouldn't someone do to express their disgust at such people, is what he's pushing. And I don't want to go into any more of this, but if you've not followed it, I would recommend that you do. And it goes to the point where Karen Malkowitz at the New York Post asks a question, face it, Jewish liberals, you have no friends on the left. This is in reference to, like I said, the swastika flag flying over NYU or the violent attacks on Jewish people at synagogues. It should at last wake up those Jews on the left who care all about self-preservation or that of their children. It's long past time to leave this one-sided alliance behind. I thought it's a powerful article. You can find it at the Post. We got to take a break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number one. In preparation, we're getting ready for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, so stay with us.
Visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News for news, local events, and more. Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Glass Back the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Saturday, May 23rd is Tracy's A Taylor Experience.
Welcome to our tribute to the Eras Tour.
Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Down and play, I'll write your name.
United Way fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. Will you?
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning edition. It's Fridays with Phil. Phil Palmisano will be in just a few moments. Make sure you get your comments in throughout the broadcast. Steve writes in and says, good morning. We say good morning to you, Steve. How can anybody be shocked about the New York Times story? It is no different than what goes on in our country. Everything the Democrats do, they try to blame Republicans and blame it that they're doing it. So Hamas rapes and kills those, horrible, October 7th, all kinds of things to their people. But they turn around trying to say it's Israel that's doing it. Why would anyone be shocked by this? It will be the same percentage of people that believe it as what actually vote for Democrats. Sometimes you just can't change people that are mentally disturbed. They will believe whatever they want. Well, it's a lot of it, Steve, is that echo chamber. And no, it's not different. I mean, it sadly doesn't come as a surprise. The fact that they reported such a flimsy source and all that, though, it just goes to show you what their goal was. Like you're saying, you see it where they blame Republicans for the exact thing that Democrats do. This is just horrific what they pushed. So that's why it's shocking. When I say shocking, it's because of how horrific and how debased they got in their anti-Semitic hatred. I don't have a lot of time. Hey, have you noticed Governor Hochul's perhaps going to change, and we'll talk with Phil about it, perhaps change a little bit of the climate policy in New York. She said that she lives in reality, which we can argue that, but that was her argument and why she had to make the changes. Have you noticed superstar, potential New York State senator for New York State, potential President of the United States, AOC, who is a Green New Deal champion, quiet, absent, as New York, quote unquote, weakens their climate law, has not weighed in on it. Now, a lot of the kind of the Democrat Socialists of America, they still support AOC, but they've been disappointed by her trying to not be moderate. I'm not trying to say that, but trying to maybe go a little bit more of the establishment way in Washington in hopes of becoming either senator or becoming president. This could add to that. Quote, anyone potentially eyeing higher office has got to pick their battles. With the SCOTUS greenlighting a red state gerrymandering us out of a democracy blitz, the elements mounting existential threats are more obvious targets, said Amit Baga, a Democrat political strategist. The lack of defense of New York's climate law from AOC and New York City mayors Ron Mondani also highlights the Democrat Party's shifting rhetoric on climate action as affordability concerns are paramount. With voters concerned about rising energy bills, Democrats are more focused on addressing pocketbook issues. You notice that? Their core beliefs ever changing. Why? Because of the vote. They want to stay in office. Surprise, surprise. All right, we got to take a break. Getting ready for hour number 2. Stay with us. We're having a blast this morning. Keep those texts, the messages coming in, and we will be right back.
Join Jabel and Horseheads for an on-site job fair Saturday, May 16th from 10 to noon. Explore careers in precision manufacturing, interview on the spot, and learn about our competitive pay, benefits, and tuition reimbursement. Don't miss out. Scan the QR code and apply today.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
Join Jabel and Horseheads for an on-site job fair Saturday, May 16th from 10 to noon. Explore careers in precision manufacturing, interview on the spot, and learn about our competitive pay, benefits, and tuition reimbursement. Don't miss out. Scan the QR code.
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Haken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from Ken this morning. It's sad that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens have decided to get so radical, and in my opinion, unhinged. I loved Tucker's show on Fox and thought Candace was grounded in reality. Now it just seems like they will say anything for clicks. I agree with you. I'm very disappointed in Candace Owens. I never was a Tucker fan, in full disclosure, going back to the Crossfire days. He always seemed to me to only be worried about Tucker, and I think that this kind of proves that. I will say some of his humor was refreshing at the time, but yeah, that was not a loss to me because I always thought he was just looking for clicks. Kind of like a Joe Scarborough, right? Joe Scarborough was a conservative. That changed, of course, when he wanted a job at MSNBC. So I always felt the same way about Tucker. But Candace Owens, I thought, especially with her early work with Charlie Kirk and some of the amazing things her and Kirk were doing when they were just so young. I remember being very impressed at the time. Seems like after that falling out, and she went for, I agree with you, down that same road where it's just looking for clicks, looking for views, and it doesn't matter how radical it is. Listen, whatever you want to say about Erica Kirk, she's a grieving widow, and to go after her in the way that she has it, I think it's a shame. I think you had at least one bright career, but I'll make your argument that 2 bright careers that have now, in my opinion, and people say, well, they make a lot of money to do. If that's what the goal was, I always thought maybe Candace Owens was more grounded in a cause. And it seems like it's no longer that. It seems like it's about Candace Owens. It seems like it's about Tucker Carlson. It is unfortunate. It is also unfortunate that so many on the left and so many in the media point to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson as staunch conservatives who have turned on Trump. It's okay. Again, I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene always wanted to be in the limelight, and she found it easier to get attention when she was a Republican, quote-unquote Republican, bad-mouthing Trump. You always saw that. Tucker's just always worried about Tucker, really from day one. So I'm with you. Couple of quick things here before we hear from Phil. Did you see Mom Donnie reached out to Ken Griffin? Because remember, he did that video in front of billionaire Ken Griffin's house to show how there should be taxes on the rich. Well, it has backfired drastically. He's talking about cutting jobs. He was talking about that $8 billion project leaving. So Zohran Mamdani doesn't care. He got the likes. He got the views. But now he did reach out because he doesn't want to lose all that money coming in. But I thought as socialists, you don't care about that. Why wouldn't you want Ken Griffin to lose? Or to move, I should say. Wouldn't you want him? I mean, billionaires are the problem, right? The CEO appears, though, to be in no mood to speak to Mamdani and may be holding out for a public apology for the video Mamdani posted on tax day calling out Griffin's $238 million second home. The video infuriated Griffin, who's been on the warpath ever since, claiming the mayor had put him in danger and leveling threats to expand his company in Miami instead of Manhattan. I wish he would. Steve Fulop, president of the Partnership for New York, a business civic group representing the city's top CEOs, he said that he had seen Griffin the day before and that a discussion with the mayor had not happened. Look, if you're Ken Griffin and you were singled out and vilified as if you had done something wrong, and the reality is that you donate hundreds of millions of dollars to philanthropy, let alone paying billions of dollars in taxes, and somebody wants to have a private conversation with a public apology or without a public apology or public recognition, that was a mistake. You probably wouldn't want to have that conversation either. No, because you know what would happen? Mamdani, if he picks up the call, Zohran Mamdani will come out and say, I had a nice conversation with Ken Griffin, we're fine. He's not going to take any of the blame. He bit off more than he can chew on that one, and it could really, really come back to bite him. I mean, you're talking serious money leaving, and I hope it does. I mean, sometimes you have to be taught a lesson if everything you're talking about is tax the rich. And we learned a little bit about this second home tax. The trigger point for a controversial new tax on luxury second homes in New York City could be lowered. Originally, it was $5 million, now to $1 million of a property's assessed value. I've got to say, in New York City, I know it sounds shocking, but $1 million home, now I know it's a second home, $1 million home is not that much. Now, there's talks about putting this upstate. Now, a $1 million, if they moved it down to $1 million and they do it to upstate, think of some of the homes on Keuka Lake. Now, I'm not even talking mansions, but because of their location, worth that. Senator Leroy Comrie, Democrat from Queens, said this budget process is broken and needs to be fixed, griping that lawmakers learn the proposal from the media instead of the governor. We should know these things. It shows a level of disrespect. It's been a disaster for Hochul, this whole process. Remember, it was just last week, and we're going to talk to Phil about it, just last week when she said the budget was done. And Carl Hasty said, whoa, no, it is not. Nowhere near done. A couple comments here. Good morning, Frank. Would you ask Phil why he was trying to sell the nuclear power plant when we have an overabundance of natural gas, which would help the landowners and keep America with clean energy? I can definitely ask him that. I will say the answer is the nuclear, because I would say in my own terms, not what Phil would say, Governor Hochul seems accepting of nuclear power. Unfortunately, with one-party rule in Albany, Phil can push natural gas as much as he wants. I hate to say it's not going to happen. Nuclear power seemed to be an avenue where there could be some back and forth, but remember, it's one-party rule in Albany, so you can put forth anything you want, and he could do that, but unfortunately, Governor Hochul and the Democrats in Albany are not going to be receptive or even look at your bill if it mentions natural gas. That would be my thought behind that, but we can ask Phil, of course, that question. Comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. It seems the Democrats have forgotten that they represent the people while they play dirty politics with the Republicans. The Democrat voters need to pay attention to what these anti-American representatives do, not what they say. They help illegal immigrants before helping real Americans, all to get votes. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, I don't want to keep talking about New York because we're talking so much about it with the Assemblyman who's coming in here in a little bit. So what I'm going to do, let me do a little bit of housekeeping here at the top of the hour. We are going to play a clip from the Assemblyman. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to play a clip from the Assemblyman in Albany as they voted on the 12th extender yesterday. So he made it on his trip back. So when we come back from this break, his speech from yesterday, and then we'll hear from the man himself, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You deserve primary care that connects. Care that helps you move forward. Care that connects you to world-class specialists. Care that connects you to providers who are part of your community. And care that connects you to the life you love. Because great healthcare comes from providers who care about connection just like you. Find your primary care appointment at centralishealth.org/schedule.
Glass Fest the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Friday, May 22nd, it's award-winning country music powerhouse Drake White with soulful country entertainer John King opening. Friday, May 22nd in Riverfront Centennial Park in Corning. Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Digital video is the fastest growing form of advertising today. And with hyper-targeting, your marketing dollars can be more efficient than ever. Join WYDC and New Logic Marketing for a digital video strategy seminar May 19th and 20th with sessions from 8 to 9 a.m. and 12 to 1 p.m. at the Radisson in Corning. You'll learn what drives results and how to make video a powerful part of your overall marketing strategy. Join us May 19th for an expert look at digital video and learn what works from experts who understand why.
How we start a conversation matters. Text CONVO to 51550 for weekly conversation starters and connect more with parenting.org from Boys Town.
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise.
Yes, Madam Speaker, my colleagues, here we are passing our 12th budget extender. We only have 10 budget bills to pass, but this is our 12th extender. This ties last year's record of 12. Next week will be our 13th, and we'll break that record. This is the latest state budget since 2010. So we are actually looking to set a modern record for more budget dysfunction in New York State. A record for failure. Let that sink in for a minute. This is really a mess. Unfortunately, this is what one-party rule looks like when no one's willing to lead. And meanwhile, like we've talked about, there were reports this week that the language for some of the largest policy issues are still not nailed down yet. I'll remind you, every day this language remains open is another day for us to finally wrap up the budget and get to the end of session as well. That's going to be a challenge there. Some very important issues that are out there. I just want to stress it again. The EV school bus mandate, our conference has been talking about it. I know we have all been hearing about it from our constituents back at home, from our school districts back at home. The mother of all unfunded mandates, especially with the school budget vote coming up next week. The reports that there are going to be a delay to this is important. They need that levity and help. And I will say to you, it's still hard for me to understand why we were always asking, the way the law is, asking school districts to convert their entire school fleets before the state of New York does not have to convert their fleet. The state of New York has a full 5 years later to do their fleet. Oh, by the way, the state of New York has an out for feasibility, cost, reliability, whatever reason they want, but our school districts do not have that. But if we'll at least, I mean, I'd like to see it repealed and go back to the drawing board, but if we can't do that, let's at least pause that in this budget. We urge you to do that. We urge that to be included. I'm sure you're hearing from the same school districts in your school district just like we are. Also, I want to just reiterate that point, given that report that came out this week relative to our deteriorating roads and bridges, there is a demand and a need in our communities. I mean, our communities right now with the delays are waiting for their aid numbers. That CHIPS money is critically important. And I will remind you, CHIPS doesn't just benefit upstate, it benefits the city, it benefits Long Island, it benefits everyone, and it's done in a fair way. With that deteriorating road and bridges, we need to have an increase in the CHIPS program. And I'm glad the chairman mentioned there's a possibility that can happen. I hopefully hear that. But with all this still outstanding, nothing finalized, we're close on a lot of issues, apparently. The governor has already went out there and declared victory on this budget. Declared victory on a budget that's not even written, on a budget this legislature has not even voted on yet, on a budget that the public has not seen. And as part of this so-called victory, we are now learning that the state is putting together another $4 billion bailout for New York City. Let's be clear what this means. New York City is going to get a bailout while the rest of the state is being left in the dark, still waiting on the state support they need to plan their own budgets, our school districts, our local municipalities to plan their road projects, one thing after another. And my colleagues, this is exactly why you don't take a victory lap before the race is finished. And you certainly don't take one while the rest of us are in here passing budget extenders to keep the lights on. Of course, myself and others are going to vote for this extender because it's important that government keeps open. It's important that we're paying our dedicated employees who are doing such a great job to protect us, to keep us safe, to make sure our roads are safe, all the services they provide across the board. That's important. We need to keep government open. But let's be honest about what we're really doing here. We're not governing. We're failing the people who sent us here. And on Monday, if nothing changes, we won't just be failing them. We will be making history, but for all the wrong reasons. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I vote in the affirmative.
Well, there we go. Extender number 12, Phil. Great job, by the way, in Albany. Does it get frustrating? So this has got to be at least your 12th speech just on the fact that we don't have a budget, right?
Yeah, this is our 12th extender.
Yeah.
This ties last year's record. Monday we're going to be doing another one for sure. That will break that record. This is going to be the latest state budget since 2010.
That one's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah.
Wasn't that August or something crazy?
August, yeah. So, I mean, but this is the latest one in modern history. And so we're making history for all the wrong reasons. I mean, it's just an example of more dysfunction, failure of leadership, failure of one-party control, all while the governor's running around the state taking a victory lap for a budget that's done, that's not done, not voted on, no language. And even the speaker came out last week when she announced it was done. She put out all this stuff.
How embarrassing was that?
He said, "There's no deal.
No,
there's no deal."
I mean, because I interviewed Joseph Hernandez that day, running for comptroller. So I wanted to ask him, and in the morning, it looked like, afternoon, Hochul said, "Oh, it passed. Or we're done with it. Not passed, but it's all done." And so I'm going, this is going to be an awkward conversation. Then Hasty comes out and says, "Oh, we're not even close." So here we are a week later, over a week later, and where's this budget that she promised us?
I mean, it's this at the same time. I mean, our school districts.
Yep.
We have a school budget vote next week.
Yep. Next Tuesday.
They were waiting. They had to put a budget out without knowing their aid numbers. Our local governments are waiting to make on road projects because it's a shortened construction season. Things like that. But then all this happens, and the governor's running around taking a victory lap. You don't take the victory lap till you finish the race.
Right.
And there's still more to do. And there's no budget language. That was my questioning. Before that, I was asking, do we have language on these issues? Do we have details on this issue? And constantly the response from my colleague, who I have great respect for, I mean, he has a difficult job, saying, no, we're close, we're close. Well, close isn't the same thing as buttoning up the language that has to be reviewed. We need the ability to review it, go through it. So, and when I talked to him on Monday during our during our discussion on the extender Monday, he said that we were looking at next week. Now, I'm not so sure. Even Senator Gianaris from the other side came out and said, we'd be lucky if we have it done before Memorial Day.
Wow.
Our session's scheduled to end Friday, June 5th. And I don't think it's going to extend beyond that because it's primary season. A lot of the Democrats, New York City have primaries in New York City. A lot of their members are being primaried. They have a June primary, so they're going to want to get out of there. So there's a lot of moving parts, but there's a lot of issues that are holding up this budget. I mean, there's policy issues that are baked into the budget that the governor brought in. And I'm not generally a fan of putting policy in the budget. Let's get the financials done. But she wouldn't talk any financials at all until some of her policy issues are addressed. What are the issues out there? Auto insurance, seeker reform to help with housing, some of the restrictions that come on with, environmental review for housing and others. One big one that you might be hearing a lot about in those is immigration type policies.
With ICE and
with ICE and some of the things she's talking about are very bad. One ending, not allowing for 287 agreements between local sheriff's departments and ICE and federal officials, which I think is a big mistake. Not allowing for cooperation between local officials and federal officials. Not allowing individuals to go into schools or courthouses or wherever it may be. And the reason, or jails especially.
Yeah.
I mean, you think that's a safer environment.
The safest place you could do it.
Go where they're, to do that instead of having to just go around from community to community, because they're going to do that, because they're going to go after people, especially criminals. And there's a lot of, we know there's a lot of individuals who are here illegally that are criminals and dangerous criminals.
And I have a problem with the mask too, because
the mask.
I'm not opposed to the mask ban when we see like the anti-Semitic protesters in the street intimidating Jewish people going into synagogues. So when she first brought that up last year, I said that's not a ban. Now that the mask ban comes for ICE, again, misplaced priorities.
Right, but there is strong opposition to some of those mask bans from the Democrats on their side when we're talking about the other issues.
I know.
but when it's for law enforcement,
Yeah.
you know, and that just
They're all
kind of
for
goes
it.
to show it's like all these laws always seem to shift in favor of the criminal over law enforcement and crime victims, and I think that's very, very problematic. So like auto insurance, seeker, immigration, tier 6. That's looking for pension reform for our public employees, and then there are some things we could look at.
Sure.
But one of the things I brought up on the floor this week is one of the issues that they're talking about. There's 3 different things, quite frankly. One is they want a reduction of the retirement age, because right under tier 4, people who are in tier 4, and the biggest mistake they made with the pension system is, in my opinion, when they did this back in 1998 or 2002, they eliminated the 3% contribution for people after 10 years. So after 10 years of service, you don't have to pay the 3% contribution. What that did is it created a big sucking sound coming out of the pension system, money going in, and there has to be a guaranteed rate of return on that investment. And if it's not made by the investment, then it has to be made up by the state taxpayers, the property taxpayers. That's why our local budgets were going through the roofs at the school districts, local municipalities. So that's why we created Tier 6, which had the contribution reinstated and changed the retirement age. Under Tier 4, you could retire after 30 years with 55 after 55 after 30 years of service. This changed to 63, so some people want to reduce the retirement age, and that's part of the discussion, and you can have those discussions. But the thing that caught my eye, and I asked a question, and some of the reports are, it sounds like that this is just might be done for teachers. And that's very problematic. I don't know how you can just do it for teachers if you're going to do a change to the pension system.
Also think of that, what that could do for the education system if we start needing teachers. I mean, some would argue maybe there's too many teachers, but still at the same point, if they can retire that much earlier.
Well, yeah, but I understand the argument, but if you're going to make changes,
it's got to be across the board.
You got to do it across the board, because all this is just going to open up the door for the next phase, and I just don't understand how you can do it for one or the other, and then who's going to pay for it? When we did Tier 6 back in 2011, and I supported that at the time because we were talking about significant cost to our local municipalities, and I stand by that vote. And it has saved some costs. But part of the language we put in there is any additional costs, any enhancements that are made are supposed to be borne by the state of New York. Governor Hochul has not indicated a reason to do that. We've had other enhancements that have come tinkering with it. That hasn't happened, and so the state should absorb any changes instead of the local municipalities, and that could be problematic, especially when we're talking with other unfunded mandates coming down the pipeline. Certainly the climate is another part of the policy. Now, quite frankly, I mean, I'm not a fan of policy, but anything we can do to change some of these climate laws, delays, like we're talking about the EV school bus mandate, it seems like there's some
even Democrat
there. Yes,
yeah. I think we'll talk about that more, because I don't want to run too late, and we got a bunch of questions coming in. So let's stay with us. One quick thing I forgot to mention this morning: if you got to make your Preakness picks, send them in now. All right, we'll be right back.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
Don't forget our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News. Give kids time. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen. Give kids time. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Did you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help clean air for kids reach more children at iqairfoundation.org.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, we got a lot to talk about here. A lot of questions from viewers, and we always appreciate that. First up, Mark writes in, Phil, it seems like Hochul is not afraid to hand out money to illegals, but as far as legal people, she doesn't care if we suffer. More of a comment. Another comment, why does upstate New York always have to bail out New York City? That's a good question.
It is a good question. I mean, we are one state, but it seems like all the focus is going to New York City. I mean, Governor Hochul came out at the beginning, said 1.5 billion. Now this week she meets with the mayor, and it's about up to 4 billion. The 4 billion is not a direct cash handout, but there are changes they're making. There's things that the state's taking over that would be responsibility of the city. There's amortization changes to the pension. Part of that is this $500 million period terror tax for second homes. That's over $5 million, but now we're talking here about $1 million. And the concern out there with that discussion too is, number one, they're talking about possibly adjusting it to upstate New York, and that would be problematic. But also, it's just this constant attack on success. I mean, and they think that these individuals are just going to keep paying these taxes.
We were talking about
when
Ken
they're
Griffin.
Yeah.
With what's around, and I don't blame him. He's not going to talk to him until he gets an apology.
Yes, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this guy's standing outside his home saying you need to pay more money. This is a guy who gives hundreds of millions of dollars to charity, business. He wants to grow business. He wants to make investment. Why would anyone want to make investments in the city of New York with a mayor who is anti-business and anti-success, and like the financial stock market, that doesn't have to be there.
No.
We see what's happening. Dallas is just opening up. There is financial industry, financial sector is leaving now, going to not New York, going to Florida, going to Texas, going to other states, and they even wanted in the White House budgets to put increase taxes on financial firms. Why? This is just not rational.
And back to your point about the second home tax, the Senator Leroy Comrie, Democrat from Queens, he says this budget process is broken. It needs to be fixed, because they learned about the two-tier tax from the media. We should know these things. It shows a level of disrespect. That's one of the biggest problems, the lack of transparency.
It is lack of transparency, because even when I was talking to my colleague, Mr. Prado, who's the chairman of Waste Media, he's a very good guy, very conscientious. I like our debates. They're always cordial and civil. And I try to get information. And he said there's reports this week that no one's even seen language on the peer-to-peer tax.
No.
And he goes, we haven't seen stuff. And every time I ask him on language, well, we're close. We're close. But yet the governor's running around saying we got an agreement. So it's just one thing after another.
Well, that was just foolish.
But no, and this has been this budget process is not only broken, it's dysfunctional. And like I said, it's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of one-party control.
Ken writes in, how many extenders does a supermajority have to put up to delay the budget approval until after the election?
Well,
be careful.
Well, there's a couple of things that are going on there. I mean, obviously the legislature is not getting paid, and rightfully so.
Right.
But the problem is this does not apply to Governor Hochul too. If
not that she needs it after we saw her filing.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's just, I think it's the principal thing.
It is. I agree.
But the thing that's going to move this thing quicker is we got elections in June.
Yeah.
Primary elections in New York City. The Dems, they have a lot of primaries, so they want to get this done. And where this is really going to infringe upon is our last day of session is June 5th. And usually after the budget, then they start dealing with the legislative agenda. And there are some terrible bills out there. The one good thing I think about this budget delay, if there's anything good of it, it's putting so much attention on this. It's delaying from doing some of these other terrible, bad policies. And believe me, there's some terrible, bad policies that are under discussion up there. So that slows that down. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, next Monday will be budget extender number 13. And again, I'm not sure if it's going to be done next week.
Why do they do them so short? Is there a reason for that?
Well, I think mainly is because we're up in Albany, we're there from Monday to Thursday.
Oh, so they squeeze them in.
But, I remember Governor Cuomo, and it was smart in some ways. I mean, I didn't agree with the politics, but he
knew how to.
I don't think this would have been happening under him. Not giving him any credit, but one time he passed he did a 6-week extender, and some of the legislature got really nervous, like, we're going to be here 6 weeks without pay.
Yeah.
And boy, did that get him to the table. Yeah. And the other question the governor has at her disposal, if she wanted to, she could put policy in the extender. then you're voting up or down to keep the government open or not. So I think that's why, you see that some of the Democrats not wanting to be too harsh with her because she could force her hand, because Governor Patterson forced that hand and Cuomo threatened it in the past. So
a couple other things. I don't think this is, well, it says good morning, Frank, and good morning to you. Could you ask Phil how the town of Corning can raise your property assessment up $103,000 when you have not made any improvements on your property? That's not necessarily a Phil question. We'll get someone on Corning, though, because I've heard a lot, assessments are always
the
major issue.
reassessments always cause problems. Revaluations, they always cause problems for local people, and there's a process to deal with it, but it's not a fun or easy process.
No.
And
so I'll get someone on.
Questions.
Yeah, a great question. $103,000. My goodness.
Yeah, that's staggering.
We'll let you know when we get somebody on. Sergeant Dave writes in, completely unrelated to New York, but good morning, Frank. Good morning, Sergeant Dave. Just my thoughts. Can you imagine any Democrat accomplishing what President Trump has, but yet keep demonizing him? Plus, the Democratic faithful fall like sheep. Thank you, Sergeant Dave. Next comment. Phil writes in, or not Phil, to Phil. Phil does a great job in Albany and seems to be one of the only few Republicans that has the guts enough to expose these dysfunctional Democrats and fight for the upstate taxpayer. That's a nice one.
It's nice, but believe me, there's a lot of my colleagues on the Republican side that are speaking out.
I agree. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. This came in earlier. Would you ask Phil why he was trying to sell the nuclear power plant when we have an overabundance of natural gas, which would help the landowners and keep America and U.S. with clean energy?
First, a couple things. I'm a diehard supporter of natural gas. I've said that. I said that on the floor. I believe we should be fracking in the southern tier. I've said that all the time. I've pointed out the hostility towards the natural gas by the previous administration. First they ban fracking, then what they do is they attack pipelines to get the gas in, and then they deny air permits for new natural gas power plants. So, I mean, for example, even under Governor Hochul, who says she's for an all-of-the-above approach, in 2021, her administration turned down permits for 2 natural gas power plants, which would have helped with the general generation and baseload generation. Now, on nuclear, I am a supporter of nuclear. I don't think I'm selling a nuclear power plant, but I'm selling nuclear technology, and that's part of the all-of-the-above approach. 20% of our power comes from nuclear energy right now. And then the thing about nuclear, it's baseload, dispatchable, reliable generation. We need dispatchable baseload generation that's available 24/7. Wind and solar is not available 24/7. That does not count. And when we have these clean energy mandates that we have to meet, nuclear is clean technology. And not necessarily we're going to build more nuclear power plants, but there's a technology that's being advanced that we need to kind of be supporter of, and that I support of. And then when I had the legislation that was held up, let's have this office that would coordinate this activity in New York State. So when that technology develops, but that's the problem. We're not there yet. That's why I've said we can't, just dismantle the affordable and reliable natural gas infrastructure supply and delivery system. And natural gas has always been referred to as a bridge fuel. You don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one. So I'm supportive of natural gas, but I think nuclear needs to be part of the equation. And on the other area, when I've said to people, even energy reporters, when they come to me about nuclear is far superior to wind and solar. First of all, again, it's reliable, it's dispatchable, it's baseload generation, but also when you look at land use. Indian Point, which Governor Cuomo brilliantly decided to shut down, was 2,000 megawatts or 2 gigawatts of power that provided 25% of the power to New York City. That was on 240 acres of land. If you look at Fitzpatrick up in central New York, that's 800 megawatts on 900 acres. But for solar, you need 8 megawatts, or 8 acres per megawatt. The Climate Action Council plan calls for 60 gigawatts of solar. Remember, there's 1,000 megawatts in a gigawatt. So 60, you're talking about 480,000 acres land. And where's that land come from? It comes from upstate. It comes from farmland. We were talking about taking farmland, prime farmland away from our farmers. Now, who can blame? I don't blame the farmers for wanting to put wind and solar on their property, because the state has hosed them on policy time and time again. When we talked about the Farm Labor Act, which puts more of a burden and financial strain on our farmers. Even on wind side, you're looking at 30 acres per megawatt. So from a not only dispatchable baseload generation, but from a land use perspective, power density, solar is much more effective and better across the board.
All right, we got to
take solar, so nuclear.
Nuclear.
Sorry.
But solar, like you said, but nuclear is better. And and the problem is, the point that I was making before we go to break is that if you go in with an idea about fracking, it's a no-go. In one party rule Albany, it's instantly a no-go. Where there seems to be a little bit of, at least with Governor Hochul, maybe a little bit of wiggle room about nuclear.
And then, but the Democrats, the socialists, don't want any part of it. They just want more wind and solar, and it doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not reliable energy. I mean, you're relying on the wind to blow or sun to shine to get your power. I just don't think so. It's just going to lead to dangerous and deadly blackouts.
Unrelated, right before we go to break, so I'll put the camera on me. I had a thought. On this school budget vote, they always tell you the contingency budget. It is always much lower. If you were at the store buying bread and it had two prices and you would tell the clerk you want the lower price, right? So why not do the same with a school budget? Vote for the lower budget. Vote no. Thank you very much. On that note, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. But frankly speaking, after this.
My brother, William Matar, is known for being a good guy. Sweet, caring, a rock. But don't let his calm exterior fool you, because deep within him is a killer instinct. Okay, it's deep within him. Really, really deep. But it's in there, and he uses it to take on big insurance and win. So if you're hurt in a car, call William Matar, my sweet, killer instinct brother. 444-4444.
Time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Glass Fest Rock the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Saturday, May 23rd is Tracy's A Taylor Experience.
Welcome to our tribute to the Eras Tour.
Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Down and play, I'll write your name.
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise a
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Okay, Mark writes in, Phil, I see Chemung County is developing energy from a landfill like Bath. I think that's a great idea. What's your thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we have to be innovative. I mean, let the market dictate it. But we see our local governments using this technology. And that's the thing. We have to look at technology to advance and address some of these things that can work if we allow innovation to take charge and allow flexibility instead of saying anything that has to do with natural gas is not allowed. And unfortunately, there are those who don't want any type of use of natural gas whatsoever. They like to say fossil fuel. It's anti-natural gas, and I get concerned about that because I brought this up with a conversation, and I always say this, Paul, 71% of New Yorkers do not want a ban on natural gas, including 76% of independents. 2/3 of New Yorkers want a balance between renewable resources and natural gas, including 74% of Democrats. So why isn't the Democratic Party listening to their own people that want natural gas to be a part of the equation? And I'm not saying we shouldn't invest in renewable technology. We should, and we are. It should be a part of the portfolio. It shouldn't be the only part of the. It shouldn't be the only thing in the portfolio. We need natural gas. We need nuclear. They need to be a part of it if we're going to be successful and have a diversified energy portfolio.
Steve writes in, says, good morning, Phil. You have to remember they don't mind eliminating farmland in New York State. They want to put a tax on flatulence by the cows. They also don't want us to eat beef any longer. So all of it runs parallel to the things that they are doing. If it takes 8 acres to create 1 gigawatt of power, that's just something that the people have to deal with. The other fact is that when they can claim eminent domain, people have absolutely no say what they will put on the solar farms. It is interesting, the solar farm, because the state has the rights over the towns and municipalities.
I mean, they can put the solar when the state gets to decide if that gets cited, despite local opinion, local control. It's just getting rammed down their throats. And also they're taking away the ability for locals to assess it too, because the state wants to take that over as well. And you mentioned about the flatulence. It's not that. We had a colleague that, remember, they want to limit the number of cows you could have on your farm. I mean,
we had a fun time with that. But you know what's scary is we have fun with that, and then because of Albany, you go, could this actually happen though?
Yeah. if it wasn't true, it'd be funny.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
It's scary stuff.
Do you think the EV bus, the delay is going to go through because it does seem like there's some
I do
appetite
think
for it?
we're going to see a delay. Optimistic, and I tried to press my colleague on it, and he goes, it's most likely you're going to see something like that. They don't like to give too much information in those discussions, but you do see reports coming out about it. But this is something we've been pushing. You've seen it in my comments that I've sent you. Every time I try to bring that up, at least over the last few times, knowing that it's coming up, we bring it up in the one house debate, saying that over and over again. We've done press conferences, we've done things like that. I think it's going to happen. It's not
It's
enough,
got to.
but it sounds like what the talk is they're talking about is right now under the law you're supposed to start purchasing in July 2027. It sounds like that's getting pushed back, at least from reports, to 2032, 5 years, and then you have to convert your entire fleet by 2035. It sounds like that's getting pushed back to 2040. Which kind of goes to my argument. What I still say on the floor, why we, under the current law, why are we asking school districts and local property taxpayers to convert their entire fleets a full 5 years before the state of New York has to convert their fleets? Oh, and by the way, the state of New York has an out for feasibility costs for whatever reason they want. If they can't do it, they don't have to do it. But our school districts do not have that same luxury. And of course, the state of New York doesn't have a timeline that they have to buy these things. They don't have to start buying them by now. They took their timelines away. There were timelines for them too, you know, certain percentage by so many days. They took them away because they knew they couldn't meet them, but not away from our school district. But I think something's going to happen. It needs to happen. But quite frankly, we should just eliminate it altogether.
Do you have faith that Governor Hochul is going to make serious change? The only reason I say that is I did appreciate her quote where when they asked, why are you making these changes? She said, I live in reality or something. We could make that argument if that's true or not. But do you think it's going to be major changes or just kind of window dressing?
I am hopeful for some significant change, but there's not going to be enough.
No.
I think she's going to take a victory lap on it, just like she did in bail reform. The things they're talking about is pushing back some of the timelines and how that works, the levels. The one thing that's I'm watching very closely is the methodology, because right now, and then when we pass the CLCPA, they use a 20-year methodology to measure emissions. Every other state, minus one, uses a 100-year methodology. The U.S. uses a 100-year methodology. International code uses a 100-year methodology. And if we don't change the methodology, I remember 2 years ago, the commissioner of DEC was out there, co-chair of the Climate Action Council, said if we don't change to a 100-year methodology, it will increase prices at the pump 63 cents a gallon, increase natural gas home heating costs by 80%. But yet, then again, recently, that report came out and was modified and is much more significant. If we don't make some significant changes, it would increase home heating costs to New Yorkers to over $4,000 annually. It would increase a price of a gallon of gas by more than $2.23 a gallon on top of what it is right now. It would increase the price of diesel by $2.41 a gallon on top of what it is right now. It would increase utility costs for small and medium-sized commercial businesses by 46%, depending on utility and facility. And the other one it would do is it would increase delivery truck operations by more than 60%. So what does that mean? Your food prices are going to go up because food is shipped. 96% of our goods in New York are shipped by truck. We have 300,000 workers in the truck industry. So your housing prices are going to go up because lumber is going to be shipped. Those prices are going to go up, for housing. All those costs are going to go up. That's going to be borne by everyone. So the cost impacts are not just on the businesses, they're on the individuals and the families and the businesses. And it's just something needs to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, reality needs to strike in. So, my concern with Governor Hochul is that she's only worried. The only day she cares about is November of 26.
That's it.
Because look what she did with congested pricing right after the election. She paused it, and right after the election, she turned around and implemented it again. So that's what I worry about this governor. She doesn't seem to really have a backbone to stand up to the progressives. But hopefully, something gets done in this. I mean, and if it does, I would applaud on that for sure.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's going to be enough.
No. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Big Fox News on YouTube.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Comment from a viewer: what do you mean Governor Hochul won't stand up to progressives? She is a progressive. She plays whatever side she can. Remember, she's not the brightest bulb in the pack, and that's why Andrew Cuomo picked her. On that note, we got a lot to cover, Phil, and we don't have a lot of time to get there. Sure. But I wanted to mention our volunteer firefighters, because they're such an important part of our community. I know you have, as long as I've known you, been an advocate for our volunteer firefighters. And it seems to be a kind of a hot topic in Albany right now. People may have missed. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yes, and certainly just point out, yes, 100% our volunteer firefighters, our volunteer emergency workers, they are actually the backbone of our rural communities. When I talk about our rural communities, I talk about our farmers are the heart of our rural communities. Our volunteer emergency workers are the backbone of our rural communities. I was just at a banquet last week in Hammondsport. They honored all these individuals for years of achievement. The chief there, Bill Friz, friend of mine, good guy, 40 years as chief. But they recognized one individual for 75 years of service. Wow. I mean, and from my traveling around the communities and banquets, when I try to get to as many as I can, I can't get to them all. It's frustrating, but it's not just an individual commitment. It's a family commitment. It's a generational commitment from time and time again, year after year. You see that. You see the entire family involved there, whether it's as a volunteer, as an auxiliary member. It's just come around. And these are individuals, they didn't just protect their neighbor. They don't just protect their neighbor's property. They protect the property taxpayer. Because there was a study that was out that said if the services our volunteers provided had to be paid services, it would cost more than $4 billion annually in additional property taxpayers. So they look out and do a great job. So the background on this is we know we are losing more volunteers. We don't do enough. They have more mandated training courses. So we've done some things. We did a thing to help with a stipend for training courses. But we had my colleague Joe Angelino from Binghamton area. He had a bill. It would provide a $2,500 income tax credit to volunteers. I mean, that's significant. So we brought that up as what we call as a motion to discharge. That's like when they're not wanting to bring it up in the committee, so we offer this as a motion to discharge. The majority decides which bills they want to put on the calendar for motion to discharge. They chose this bill. So we went up and we all spoke on the bill. They said it's a policy vote. It's not. They said it's not policy. This isn't a vote on the merits. They said it's a vote on procedure or process, which is BS, because we've said all along, again, this is about vote on the policy of it. So they shot it down, $2,500 tax credit for a volunteer fire.
When they throw around money for everything.
Yeah, in the context of a $250 billion budget, we're talking about the bailout for New York City of $4 billion. We can't do a $2,500 tax credit. So we hammered them. We did social media, we hammered them, and they got a tremendous amount of pushback from the volunteers around the state, and rightfully so. So what they did is they came out with their own bill, and it basically provides up $800 tax credit for an individual. It's better than nothing. It pales in comparison to what we owe them.
Doesn't it almost sound like it, though? It's almost like when we got our rebate check or whatever. Yes. It's almost more insulting than it is. I'm sure they're not going to turn down the 800. Don't get me wrong. Right. But at some point, it's like, this is what you think of us?
Right. Well, the other thing, I mean, the good thing that the bill does and what our bill would have done, because right before you had to choose between the property tax credit that you might be available and the income tax credit. Now you can do both, and you should be able to do both. And it's just little things. It's just a small gesture. So I supported the bill. We all supported it. We weren't going to support, but we pointed out we had a better bill. They could have passed our bill. They chose not to because they wanted to play politics with it. And it just goes to show that, when people say we're in the minority, can't get things, we can, because we brought it up and we hammered them for it, and then
they don't
they
like
got
the
that
bad
backlash,
Yeah.
and that's why I think the same thing you see happening with all the climate stuff. You know, the EV school bus ban. We've been hammering at these changes we've been talking about. We are moving the needle when people speak up and they go to these Democrats in these areas in upstate New York or in Long Island, maybe not New York City, but in these areas, people say, hey, we got to do something. So they did something this week that it's helpful, but it's not enough.
And I read this morning, New York State has lost between 30 and 40% of its volunteer firefighters since the start of the decade.
Yeah, it's
30
very,
and 40%.
it's very, very scary. So
That's
we need
nuts.
to do more. I mean, there's a lot of things we should be doing for our volunteers to help.
Okay, so I saw this morning on Empire Report. Is there really, I'm sure there is, talks of redistricting?
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, and Governor Hochul says, you know, she says we're going to do what we can to fight back against what the Republicans are doing.
Our whole life, or our whole state is gerrymandered.
Yes, and New York's the one who started it.
I
You
know.
remember they gerrymandered back in the congressional races. They got caught and they got thrown out of court, and then they changed it again. I mean, they continue to change the rules in the middle of the game on policies if they don't like it, and then they changed it. They jerry-rigged the courts. You remember, if you want to take an election case, where do you got to take it? New York City, Westchester, Albany, or Buffalo. Democratically controlled areas to go through those courts, and they stack the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
So it's one thing after another. So
I knew they would, because could see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
But it's so amazing when our whole history has been gerrymandering.
Yeah, but the thing about it, just so you know, the voters will get a say in this, because you have to change the Constitution. They have to pass 2 concurrent legislatures, so they would have to do something. And they're trying to see, there's an article I read this morning that said they're looking at multiple options, put a bunch of options on up to pass, and then they can reconsider which ones they want to take next year, because it has to pass
Twice.
this legislature before the end of the term, and the next one, then it could go on the ballot in 2027 for 28 elections. Interesting, they want to go on during the 2027 elections. You remember they wanted to say everyone on even year elections. They don't want that to be an even year election. They want it so they do it in 27 when not as many people participate.
Right.
So they can take it and do it for the congressional elections in 2028.
Interesting. All right, we got a little bit before we
Hypocrites.
wrap up. Absolutely. Get those last second comments in, because we only have a couple minutes. We'll be right back after this.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
It's the home of activity. Release your inner audio engineer. Create with the 3D printer. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to your local library today.
Glassfest Rock the Park, presented by Simmons Rockwell. Friday, May 22nd, it's award-winning country music powerhouse Drake White with soulful country entertainer John King opening. Friday, May 22nd in Riverfront Centennial Park in Corning. Free and open to the public. Brought to you by Simmons Rockwell.
Hi there, partly sunny for our Friday. We'll have a high of 66, which is a little on the cool side for this time of year. Then tonight, temperatures bottoming out seasonably in the mid-40s. We will find ourselves rising toward 80 on Saturday, a good 10 degrees or so above average. In fact, this warming trend will continue so that we see 90-degree heat Monday and Tuesday. A few showers possible for Sunday, otherwise a relatively
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. In that studio, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. All right, Phil, we talked about it quickly on the program this morning, really early on. I just can't believe that this matching funds for Blakeman starts as it's supposed to be to help the little guy defeat the incumbent. Then they take it away from him because of a piece of paper that he filed that or didn't file that does not exist. Yeah. So then they go to he takes it to the courts. The courts say, okay, we'll give him the matching funds, and the Democrats have the audacity to appeal.
It's amazing. I mean, the hypocrisy, the audacity of their side on these issues. And, you know, they didn't just do it to Mr. Blakeman. They did to even the other minor party candidates. They don't want competition. Here's the party that talks about democracy. We're for democracy, the threats to democracy. They're the threats to democracy. Exactly. They don't want a program they created, which I think is a terrible program we shouldn't have. But if you have it, you got to allow people to participate.
Got to play by the rules.
He's playing by the rules. I mean,
he'd be nuts not to take it.
And to say they kicked him off because they said he didn't follow the rules, following the form. What form? There is no form. I'm still not even sure if a form exists.
Last I read, it does not exist.
So how are you supposed to correct it? They allowed him the ability to correct it, to fill out the form. And then what if he can't fill out the form? What if the form doesn't work? And so
I'm going to get a little conspiratorial because Governor Hochul didn't take the matching funds, almost as if she saw this coming, because now she can take the high ground where it doesn't affect me. I didn't fill out the form improperly. You know what I mean?
And she's just got so much money coming in the door. Of course she's going to turn it down.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean,
I was so relieved earlier in the week when they gave it to Blakeman, and now I'm thinking, I thought it was okay. Everybody knows it's partisan. We'll just drop it at that, and then they still have the audacity to appeal.
Yeah, I just don't understand them, but it is what it is. But hopefully, it upholds and moves forward. But I know Mr. Blakeman's been here. He's been in your studio.
Yes.
He's been
to Corning. Did a great job recording.
Yeah,
so many people have been talking about it after that because it was I tried to remind people it was a press conference. It wasn't a rally, right? So when people did happen to be walking by in Corning and having the conversation with him, he was the talk of the town.
Yeah, and people enjoyed it. They took pictures with him. I mean, so I hope we can get up here more and more areas. But I think, listen, there is a hunger to get Kathy Hochul out of our governorship because she hasn't done a good job. I mean, so we need someone to change, and I think he can capitalize on that. And I just think people want to see him more, and it's hard. It's a big state, but he's got to get up here.
All right, before we go, we talked with Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski last week. He stole your Friday. Thank you for watching, though. We did appreciate the comments and the questions. How was it at St. Bonaventure?
Oh, what a great day. Yeah. I was so honored to be there. Joe obviously represents St. Bonaventure, George Burrell. We did a resolution of my Democratic colleague, Bill Conrad from the Buffalo area. He's a former rugby coach. The St. Bonaventure won the national championship in December of 25 for rugby, the men's rugby team.
That's awesome.
That's their second men's rugby championship in the past several years. And the women's team won a championship in between. So I've gone back. We passed a resolution. It's passed the legislature. We gave them out to all the team. And I remind people, I always show up the resolution. I'm like, this actually passed the state legislature. It's one good thing that passed in Albany this year. But to do that and take pictures with them and just say, and I had to tell them, I go, listen, I'm here more because I'm Bonaventure.
Right.
And I have my connections with rugby with my daughter and my son who played. And I said, but my daughter played with some of the women from the women's team. We had some kids from Corning that played at St. Bonaventure, so there's a connection there. I know Bob McGee, the head rugby coach for the Corning program, knows Bill Conrad, because they coached against each other. So it's just that there's a connection. But for me, it's the Bonaventure connection. I said to them, I go, listen, this I told them I was texting with my college friends that I'm going there, and they were all thrilled. They all said, congratulations. I go, this Bona family runs things so thick. So when you leave here, if you ever need anything, when I say call me, I'm serious, reach out, because Bonaventure family looks out for each other. But I got to hold the national championship trophy.
That's cool.
I got to wear the ring. I had the resolution, so I have pictures. I saw my old old friend of mine who I went to school there. He works in the athletics department at CMS. So it was great.
Well, send pictures if you get a chance.
I'm going to send pictures.
We'd love to see them.
It was last Friday, so I haven't had a chance to do it. But I will get them to you and post them because I'm smiling ear to ear.
Yep. Well, Phil, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. We covered a lot, but there's so much more to cover.
Yes, and I'll definitely be back whenever the budget's passed. Hopefully it's before August.
Let's do it before then. How's that, okay? Just to be on the safe side. We'll book you before. But thanks, Phil. All right, join us on Monday morning. Next week, we've got a busy week. We're going to hear about Miss Colonial Days coming right up. We're going to hear about Tony Pucci's new book, Whoppers and Other Lies. We've got the Chemung Fair to learn about. Heritage of America Band playing at the Clemens Center on May 24th. We're going to be talking school vote on Tuesday, so don't miss a second. But frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you Monday morning. I look forward to it already.
Every job demands control, no matter how rough the terrain. That's why Ferris features patented front and rear suspension
turning rough terrain into smooth motion. Less stress on your crew, less stress on your equipment, more lawns mowed. Feels like more money in your pocket. Feels like a Ferris.